Just wanted to talk, that's all.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Today is Wednesday, October 15th, and we got news this morning that Anthony Volpe, Yankees shortstop, is going to have he has had labrum surgery to repair a tear in the labrum of his left shoulder. Now, if you're unfamiliar with the labrum, I'll just give you just kind of a little bit of personal insight because I tore my labrum in my right shoulder, and I did it in 2008 in a similar way, but it's basically the shoulder is like a ball in a socket, like the way the shoulder operates, and then the labrum is tissue that goes around that socket. And there are different ways you can tear it. You can tear it vertically. You can also tear it from the bone a little bit, and it's an extremely painful injury when you have to use it. Now, most of the time in daily life, I didn't feel it, right? If I'm just kind of like living my life. But if I went to go throw a baseball, I went to swing a bat, if I was doing weightlifting, and it gets worse over time. So like it got to the point eventually where, after I did any kind of baseball activities, I couldn't even lift the milk out of the fridge, right? I had trouble like washing my hair with my right arm. I had to put shampoo in the left arm. And it becomes quite painful, quite aggravated. Now, I didn't have the surgery. I just kind of dealt with it over time. I figured, well, I'm not a professional baseball. Eventually, I'm going to stop having to throw. And now it feels mostly better. It still bothers me when I sleep on it. But I want to put a comment up here because I think this is in bad taste. Saul Segura says, good, trade him now. I just got to say, that's terrible. We don't want our players to get hurt. You don't want our guys to have to have surgery. You want him to be better. You want Yankees to be successful. And obviously, this is a down year for him. 212 average, 19 home runs. He did have 72 RBIs, a 1.7 WAR, 83 OPS plus, so about 17% worse than league average in terms of his production. He had a good series against the Red Sox. He went 4 for 11 in the wild card series, but then in the ALDS, just 1 for 15 with 11 strikeouts. Now, as somebody who has seen this before, I'm concerned about whether or not he can ever be the same. I want to talk about a couple of different players that have had labrum issues. Now, let's begin with Greg Bird. Now, Greg Bird was a guy who had labrum surgery after I want to say it was the 2018 season. Let's go ahead and share the screen. This is a guy who, actually no, it must have been after the 2017 season. Anyway, his numbers really fell off. This is a guy who was looking like he could hit, for a ton of power for the Yankees for a long time. But after he had his surgery, like he went from being a lethal bat in that series against the Astros to really falling off power-wise. Another guy to look at is Miguel Andujar, who had labrum surgery. Now, he hit 318 this year. He has recovered a little bit offensively, but, he had labrum surgery after hurting himself. I believe it was the second game of the season back in 2019. And his power has really never been the same. He had 27 home runs back in 2018, and then, nothing in 2019. He had 1 in 2020, 6 in 2021, and then 1 in 2022. We can hide the partial rows, and you can see that he's never topped 10 since then. So for a guy who wants to be a power hitter, having an injury that affects potentially your power is not good. He's going to maybe perhaps be forced to become more of a contact-oriented hitter. Now, let's take a look at Anthony Volpe's stats over his career. Now, as a rookie, 209, 21 home runs, 60 RBIs, 24 stolen bases. Obviously 167 strikeouts, not good. 666 OPS, positively devilish. And then the following year, I thought he was off to the right start. He began that season. We can go back and look at the game logs, but he hit 243 that year with 12 home runs and 60 RBIs. Let's go ahead and look at the splits. Actually, you know what? Let's go to game logs and just kind of see where it all started to fall apart. So I'm just going to basically select the first game of the season And then we're going to go through right about, let's see, what was his high point? About 288 right here, right around early June. So at that point, the Yankees were 44-19. They were on fire. He was hitting 288 with 6 home runs, 25 RBIs, 796 OPS. This is the guy that I think the Yankees need, right? A guy who puts the ball in play, who can make things happen with his legs. He had 10 doubles and 6 triples, right? And then after that, so let's just go ahead and clear the selection here. Let's go from, actually, sorry, I did that wrong. Clear selection. So let's go from the next day all the way through the end of that season. After that point, he hit 213, which is more in line with what he hit this year. 213 with 6 home runs, 35 ribbies. So he had a massive drop-off. You know, I know he did better in the playoffs in 2024, but, you know, I don't really know what the solution is for Volpe. He wants to get paid. He wants to hit home runs. Obviously, the labrum injury is not going to help with that. Will McConnelly says, do we know the recovery time? If it, you know, he's not a pitcher and it's not his throwing arm, it's his left shoulder, I could imagine him being back by opening day or at least early in the season. But to be honest, I can't see him being fully effective right away. I mean, it's going to, you know, you're missing an entire offseason of work. And this was an offseason where it was vital for him to work and vital for him to sort of, you know, make the adjustments that he needed to make in order to, you know, correct some of these numbers. And it's just been, it's a tough loss. Jay says Matt Blake's contract just ended. Hopefully the Yankees will bring him back. We'll see. Harvey says the shoulder could explain his throwing issues, but doesn't explain his inconsistency at the plate. So Harvey, this is his left shoulder. So he hurt it diving for a ball. And he said that he felt a pop. I remember when I tore mine, it sounded kind of like when you pull out the plastic from like the plastic that you're going to cover your food with, like cellophane tape, I think it's called, cellophane plastic, whatever. When you pull it out and it kind of makes that sound, that's what I heard, right? So the other voices says he wasn't hitting when he was healthy. The uppercut swing is not getting better. I agree with you. I think that a contact line drive approach is the way to go. I also think that maybe second base is his future, right? So he's going to have this surgery, and we'll see how he, you know, pans out afterwards. Scary Fall says people will say that the surgery is the reason he had a bad season, which is not. We don't know to what degree this affected him, but as I just showed you, for the last, 100 games or so last year, it looks like, 97 games, he hit 213 with a 251 on-base percentage. And going back to his first day in the major leagues, he's basically one of the worst in batting average, one of the worst in on-base percentage, and one of the worst in OPS. And Yankees fans just, quite frankly, look for more than that. So we got the chat filling up here. Let's take a few more comments here, and then I'll run a quick DraftKings, and we'll take a few more. David Paez says, you don't wish ill upon anyone. 100% agree. We're better than that, Yankees fans. We should not be celebrating a player's injury just because he had a bad postseason or a bad season. Saul Segura says, we could just put Caballero at shortstop. Here's the issue with that. He doesn't hit very much either. If you look at his numbers, and I'm going to go ahead and pull up his numbers, he's obviously got the speed, but this is not a guy who is a consistent offensive player. This is a guy who hit 236. Now, that's a damn sight better than Anthony Volpe hit this year, and he had a higher WAR in less games, right? So theoretically, you would be getting better, but a lot of that is just speed. 49 stolen bases, 236 average, 5 home runs. I don't care about the home runs from my shortstop. I want a shortstop who's going to get on base, who's going to pick up the baseball, who's going to make all the plays, and the rest of the team can make up for power and make up for we have Aaron Judge. We'll probably bring back Cody Bellinger. Giancarlo Stanton could be healthy for a season. We'll see. But we can make up for, losing Volpe's 19 home runs down to 5 or 10 from Caballero. I agree with you there. But I also think that Caballero provides someone who can play all over the field. You can play second base, you can play third base, you can bounce him around depending on what you need. So I'm not sure the Yankees are going to want to go that direction. A Dressler says, my buddy tore his throwing shoulder 3 times. It seems like it might be an issue over time. Does your buddy have surgery to get it repaired, or did he just, keep re-tearing the same injury? That would not be fun. That hurts. Dan A says, you guys will get tired of Caballero quickly. I agree that, in the sample size that we saw him, filling in for a guy who was struggling as much as he was, Volpe, having Caballero come in was kind of a breath of fresh air. He's a more polished defender, got a better arm. Obviously, he's aggressive on the bases. He also got picked off a few times. But the lack of production, I think, would kind of irritate some Yankee fans. Look, there's no Bobby Witt out there for us to get, right? There's nobody like that who's an elite leadoff man, contact hitter who plays good defense. It just is not available to us right now. The Yankees are trying to develop one in Lombard, but that didn't exactly go great. I can pull up George Lombard Jr.'s stats. I had an interesting comment on this channel right after the season. I think it was Richard who said that we should hire Lombard Sr. for the bench coach position or as manager, and that could help Lombard transition. And I don't entirely disagree. But, Lombard, just 20 years old. He turned 20 in June. He won't be 21 until next year. And that was the year at which Volpe debuted. So you want to give this guy a little bit of time here. Let's not rush him too much. 235 average, 367 on base percentage. So he does draw his walks. 9 home runs. He seemed to hit for more power down the stretch. He had a nice little run of power in spring training. He looked good. 111 hits, 35 stolen bases, 748 OPS. And this is basically his second full year in the minor leagues. First full year was in 2024 between Tampa and Hudson Valley. Again, 231. I worry about guys who hit 230 in the minors, and I know he's young, but there are people who want to rush him up. I mean, do you really think that if a guy hits 231 against single A and double A pitchers, that you're going to call him up and rush him to the major leagues and he's going to hit 260, 270? Get out of here. It's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. So, look, we got to be careful with this. We got to make sure that, we take our time with a guy who could be a big-time prospect. Oswaldo Cabrera's coming back, but he's on his ankle, recovery program. We don't know what kind of mobility he's going to have. It was a very bad, ankles don't bend that way. His ankle was broken significantly. I'd feel comfortable with him at third base. Not sure I would feel comfortable with him at shortstop at this point. So Sierra says, yeah, we have such a great track record of developing talent recently. I don't disagree with you at all. And then Will McConaughey says, Spencer Jones and Warren for Jacob Wilson, dreams. Yes, you are absolutely dreaming. In fact, you might be smoking a little bit of crack there.
Don't smoke crack.
That's not even close. You would need a lot more. You're talking about an elite hitter. And the A's have no incentive to trade him. Look, the A's are getting a new ballpark. They're trying to build a fan base. They're not going to unload their young guys that are looking like the future. Him and Nick Kurtz, I'm sure they envision those guys celebrating on the Vegas Strip with a parade someday. All right, quick word from DraftKings. Get your comments in. We'll take some more comments. Pressure is on, the lights are brighter, and with DraftKings Sportsbook, you're right there in the middle of every moonshot moment. DraftKings Sportsbook delivers the intensity of October with player props, live in-game betting, and odds that can change as fast as a ball flying over the fence. New customers bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get paid out $200 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use the code FOUL. That's code FOUL to turn $5 into $200 in bonus bets if your bet wins. In partnership with DraftKings, the crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, fees may apply in Illinois. 21 and over. Age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bet must win to receive reward. Minimum minus 500 odds required. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/gaming. Volpe.com/audio.
All right, we got a couple of voicemails coming in that I have not listened to yet, so I'm going to go ahead and download those real quick, and we'll get them up, and hopefully they are not Nazis. But let's go ahead and see what you guys have to take away from this news that Anthony Volpe is having surgery. If that's even what these are about, this could be about anything.
What's up, Derek? I got 2 quick points. One, I don't know what the Yankees doctors are doing. Obviously, you see Volpe having surgery. We all knew he was playing hurt. Same thing happened with Riz a couple of years. I mean, it makes no sense for them to do this. And my other point was going to be, I don't understand a lot of these Yankee fans' off-season, plans. A lot of them are so unrealistic. With JT Realmuto, I've seen some people vote with Chet. I'm going to be honest. I'm not saying I don't want them, but we're not getting them. Cashman is probably only going to re-sign guys. For example, like Cody, maybe Tim Hill, maybe a Ryan Yarbrough, but we're not getting new guys. They're going to stick Jason Dominguez there. Maybe Francis Jones is in your rotation. You could have Rice as a catcher, Cody is first base, the outfield of Jones, Judge, and Jason. Maybe Judge takes some first base reps so he doesn't hurt the arm, and Bellinger's out there. But I don't think we're getting anybody new. I don't get what these Yankees...
So I disagree that we're not getting anybody new. The Yankees always try and add at least somebody new. Here's the deal. They have unloaded a lot of salary. Hicks' contract is finally off the books. Stroman is off the books. Bellinger's going to get a raise, right? If he comes back, Bellinger's going to get a $5 to $10 million raise minimum. Stanton's money is less this year. I know it doesn't impact the AAV that much, but he's winding down his contract. I think he only makes about $21 or $22 million this year. He's got a couple of years left. LeMahieu's money's coming off the books soon. So right now, the Yankees' committed money next year is under $200 million at this point. I think they're going to be back up around $300 million, but I can see them trying to reset the luxury tax a little bit. I can agree with you there that we shouldn't expect like major overhauls. Dominguez, I think, is going to get a shot. I think the Yankees want to see what he can do. I mean, they've got a lot of time invested in him in development, and he's obviously a fan favorite. A lot of fans like myself believe in him. They like the contact approach. From the left side of the plate, he was tremendous, and he finished off his season strong with a double in the ALDS. But defense has got to get better. The right-handed approach has got to get better. I can see the Yankees trying to pick up a right-handed bat to platoon in the outfield, maybe in third base. I could see that happening. I could see him trying to go out and get a one-year shortstop stopgap. I really could. I mean, if Volpe is not going to be ready for opening day, or let's say he's going to miss the first 2 months of the season, right? Let's say his recovery isn't going as smoothly as they thought. It might be a good idea to go out and get somebody who's a stopgap. Now, I wouldn't expect a superstar, but they're going to need somebody. Somebody's got to play shortstop next year. I think that they're going to maybe even try and add a couple of big bullpen pieces. They're obviously losing Devin Williams. I don't think they're going to try and bring him back. I think he can go be a closer elsewhere. I think that they can, as Martino said, the Chad Green types. I'm not saying Chad Green, the person, but the kind of under-the-radar guy that they look at the metrics and say, oh, this guy can pitch, like they did with Jonathan Loaiza, who, by the way, also probably not coming back. Here's another voicemail.
So, Derek, another point. What do you think about the coaches change with the first baseman and the bullpen coach? I know Boone ripped the first baseman, for the Jazz mistake this season. And I know James Rousing, as well as Luis Rojas, has done interviews for coaching jobs where there was the Twins for Rousing and Rojas was with Baltimore. Do you think any of these matter, like any of these coaching changes, or do you think that they do have some sort of effect on our team?
Coaching absolutely matters, 100%. Anybody who watched the 90s Dynasty can tell you how important Mel Stottlemyre was, how important Willie Randolph was. Not only in like the X's and O's of like, here's what you do in a certain situation, or, what you're actually doing in game as a first base coach. A lot of it is just mentoring young players, teaching them how to get through, situations where they might be struggling, or they might, have trouble facing a certain type of pitcher. Randolph could say, hey, here's what was, when I would have a little bit of a defensive slump, here's how I would get out of it. Or, Chris Chambliss, when he was the hitting coach, could say, there's a lot of hits to right field at Yankee Stadium, right? You can impart that wisdom on young players. And I think that's the most important thing. And that's why I'm not entirely sad to see this first base coach go. I mean, let's bring back somebody from, maybe the 2009 team. Let's bring back Brett Gardner as a coach, okay? I know he had kind of a rough exit with the Yankees, but that's the kind of guy that you need some kind of a fiery personality on the bench. How about Didi Gregorius as just like I know he doesn't have a lot of coaching experience. He's still playing in the Netherlands, I believe, and his chemistry, just bringing the vibes into the clubhouse. To me, coaching is not just about the X's and O's. It's about vibes. It's about clubhouse culture. It's about attitude, that type of thing. So, hey, let's hope that Volpe gets better soon. I will be back tomorrow. We're going to have Frankie Baseball on. We're going to talk about Yankees Mount Rushmore. We're going to go over our Yankees Mount Rushmore because I think at least 2 or 3 of the spots are easy to fill, but you only get 4 spots. So filling in that final spot, I know he and I have some disagreements on that. So we're going to hash it out. We're going to have fun with it. And then over the course of the winter, obviously 2 shows per week and then covering all breaking news and so forth. So go ahead and call in and we'll take voicemails as we do these shows. And I'll see you next time. If you enjoyed this content, please hit that like button and subscribe. Check out nyydesigns.shop for some great merch. Support our sponsors. It helps keep the show going. And you can find us on all major audio platforms, so be sure to subscribe there too. But most importantly, come back again soon. We'll see you next time.